which although you may think is not true today, in the time when the Quran was being revealed, it was the reality. There were many, many different ideas about who Jesus was, about what happened to him, and so on and so forth. And as the Reverend, she quoted Josephus, actually a more detailed examination of Josephus would reveal that, like all ancient scriptures, unfortunately they were subject to a lot of revision, rewriting, and distortion, because they were copied by hand. They weren't printed like they were today. It's very easy for the copyist to put in things that would agree with their own particular ideas. Now, interestingly, we don't have any ancient documents of the writings of Josephus contemporaneous to his time. In fact, there are very different documents. Not all the writings of Josephus, not all the copies mention the crucifixion. Some of them mention about Jesus and don't mention the crucifixion. Some copies mention the crucifixion, and many historians have theorized that this was actually added later. This was actually added later by Christian copyists. This is the problem. One of the problems with dealing with ancient documents is these type of things. So anyway, the point being, even the Quran acknowledges that people believe that Jesus was crucified. Okay. The fact is, however, what the Quran says is that is not what happened, although it appeared as if it had. So I just wanted to make that important point.
I just want to make a point here. The point is, see, Josephus was not a Christian. I'm not in any way trying to belittle what my brother said. He wasn't a Christian. And what he wrote down, what he wrote was a bit like someone today writing something about what's happening in the world today. And someone stumbling over it in about 500 years. So Josephus was a very independent person. He wrote about various things. It would be wrong for someone to go in there and just change that little bit about the crucifixion. I don't believe that happened, because he spoke about the wars that happened in those times, the Greek wars and everything. He's accredited as one of the historians. So it's not so much, Josephus is not, he's just one of the things you add on if you're going to make an argument for the crucifixion. But the one point I want to make is, this Bible is authentic. Brother Abdul said that it wasn't, but that even some believers believe that it isn't, but that's not true. It is authentic. I just want to make a point that that is authentic. I haven't got the time to go into how I can prove it now that it is, but I haven't got the time. Let's go through it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a note that if you could please ask questions also to Brother Abdul Rahim Green, because most of the questions I have here are actually directed to Pastor Kofi, and most of them are off topic. Actually, there was about 2 questions referred to Brother Green, and one of them was off topic. Okay. To Brother Green and Kofi, for most people, even Christians, the Trinity does not make sense. Please explain the Trinity. This is a very difficult subject, so instead of being extensive, if you could keep it at a minimum, please.
Okay, he said, no, I don't want to go, it's your doctrine. The Trinity is probably one of the trickiest things. Even Christians, I will tell you, do not understand it. It's one of the trickiest. But at the moment, we've agreed that we won't go into quotations, and we're going to keep this as simple as possible. God is one. And I'm going to try and put this to you the way it is. If you look at the human constitution, this is as quickly as I'm going to do this. The human constitution is a body, a spirit, and a soul. I don't know if you guys believe in that. I don't know if Islam believes in that. The spirit, body, and soul. But you see, you're one, aren't you? You can't separate that, really, can you? If you leave this body, even though you've left, you still need a body to live in at some point. And that's why even with Christians we believe that if you leave this body you will have a resurrected body one day. I don't know if that's so in Islam. In the same way, we see God as a three-in-one God. And the Bible, our authority, talks about this. In other words, we're sitting here today, I'm here, God's Spirit lives within me. I know some of you are shaking your head, you can't take this in. But that's revelation. That's revelation. When Jesus Christ died on the cross and resurrected, he said, I am going, but I have to go and stay with the Father. If I don't go, the Holy Spirit will not be allowed to come down. I won't come down. I have to go and let him come down. And that's what's happening now. And on Pentecost Day, and this again is documented, it's not just in the Bible, people witnessed the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Unfortunately, as I said, I can't go through the quotations with the Greek, but if you go through the Old Testament, which I know, even if you will dispute the New Testament, you won't dispute the Old. You won't dispute the Torah. You will find it in there. But I know you will argue, you will talk about it and say, no, it's not true. We as Christians accept it and know it by revelation.
Of course, the issue of the Trinity is something that the Quran itself is concerned with. And it is mentioned in the Quran very clearly. And the Quran says, do not say three, do not say Trinity, your God is one God. And it is very clear in the Quran also that it states that whoever claims that anyone, including Jesus, is God, they have not believed in God. They have in fact rejected the oneness of God. The notion that some human being, that some creature, that some finite, temporary thing in this universe could possibly be equal to the infinite, eternal creator of the heavens and the earth is the very doctrine that the prophets had been resisting since the beginning of time. In fact, from the Muslim perspective, the message of all the prophets was to remind the people that God was not like any created thing. And that if we look at the world that the prophets were facing, they were facing always people who were claiming that some human being was equal to God, or that had some of God's powers or God's attributes, or some creature, whether it was Osiris, Baal, Mithra, Alexander the Great, Caesar, Pharaoh. All of these people, either mythical or real people, were claimants to divinity. They all claimed to be God. Alexander the Great, for example, claimed to be the begotten son of Zeus. So this idea of God begetting children, of man gods, of human beings being God at the same time, this was the paganism that the prophets were constantly fighting against. They were upholding the pure monotheism, that there is